On today's episode of the DuckZone503 Podcast, I'm joined by a super special guest today, and we're going to preview and predict this Week 8 matchup of Washington State at number 9, Oregon. We'll also be giving our 3 keys of the game and finally our final score prediction. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Let's get into it, people.
Welcome to the DuckZone503 Podcast. Talking all things Oregon football. With your host, Dominiqk Peterson. Let's go.
Welcome into today's edition of the DuckZone503 Podcast. Today is Wednesday, October 18th, 2023, and I am happy to be with you people. Somewhat. It was a little bit disappointing last week, but we're excited, guys. We got Washington State in the building. I'm joined by a super dope guest today, Kuria Pounds, host of the Kid Talkin Sports Podcast, and we are here to preview and predict Cougars versus Ducks. How we feeling, Kuria?
Look, I'm feeling about the same way you are, man. I mean, we had a rough game up in Pullman, but, it's a new week. All you can do is turn a new leaf, so we're on to a new week up here, but, we're doing all right. We're doing all right, still over 500 and, 4-2, that's kind of a win for us right now, about 6 games into the season. So that's all. You really can't complain about that.
100%. And the Cougars have been performing really well, got some big wins. Last couple of weeks have been tough. Last weekend was tough for Oregon. So this is opportunity for both teams to come in, bounce back, and they got everything in front of them. All their goals still set. So it's still early in the season. We got a competitive game last year from Washington State and Oregon. That game was crazy. It's going to be awesome to talk about this game and preview and predict it with you. Before we get started, I always like to start out, where can we find all your work and people want to get tuned in with the Cougars? Where can we find you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first, you see right there on the ticker right there, that is my Twitter right there, at Kuria_Pounds. That is where you can find all my latest tweets about the Cougs, whether it's men's football, men's basketball, women's basketball, women's soccer, you name it. The latest news, that's where you can find my Twitter. As you mentioned earlier, that's my podcast, Kid Talkin Sports. I go into a little bit in more depth about, the college sports scene as a whole instead of just Washington, whether it's, just highlighting some smaller sports or talking about, the latest realignment issues and the NIL talking about. And then as well, you can find the latest articles about men's basketball along with men's football on the website Wazoo Watch. That is WashingtonState.Rivals.com. That's for all the latest news, the latest updates, and all the latest recaps from all the games regarding football, men's basketball, and maybe even baseball this year. So that is where you can all find all my work regarding the Cougs.
Bam, there you go, guys. Make sure you guys get locked in right there. Whole bunch of different routes, different options you guys can take to get all that content. Love the way he does it, man. Kuria Pounds is working. Make sure you guys subscribe to the DuckZone503 Podcast as well. I'm giving you guys 2 podcasts a week. I talk all things Oregon football, but I also like to dive into the Pac-12 as well. And as you know, Oregon's going to be going to the Big Ten next year, so I'll be shifting my gears to be covering the Big Ten, it looks like. 2 episodes a week, full game day experience vlogs, something kind of unique I like to do on this channel. As a season ticket holder, as a lifelong fan of the Ducks, I always like to go to the games, give that game day experience, tailgate, and give you guys what it's like there. If you've never been there, you guys can get a sense of what it's like. I was there at number 8, Oregon, and number 7, Washington. What a game. What a matchup. I came out on losing it, but that was a game, of course, that I'll always remember forever. Just the way it went back and forth. It was awesome. So make sure you guys go check out. If you haven't already, we talk Pac-12 ball, give you recruit interviews and more. Make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast. We're sitting there around 954 subscribers on YouTube. We're trying to get to 1,000. That's been the goal. Get us there. Tell your family and friends. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to rate it 5 stars for me as well. All right, guys, let's get into it. We got a big matchup on our hands. Washington State coming in at 4-2, 1-2 in conference play. Number 9, Oregon, they dropped 1 spot after a pretty good performance in Washington. You dropped it off a missed field goal in the end. And, we played tough. We're right there with Washington. So we only dropped 1 spot, 5-1, 2-1 in conference play. Everything's still in front of you if you're Oregon. Everything's still in front of you if you're Washington State after these last couple of weeks. So this is a big game. This is a game that both teams are going to want to win here in Autzen Stadium. 12:30 Pacific time kickoff. Oregon comes in as a 20-point favorite. The last I look on Caesars Sportsbook, ESPN matchup predictor got Oregon as a 95% chance to win here. So Oregon comes in as a heavy favorite in this matchup. Head coach Jake Dickert, 14-11 all time, third season with the Cougars, 7-6 last season. You know, Kuria, as you watch head coach Jake Dickert run this Washington State program over the last few years, what are some positive takeaways that you liked about Dickert? And also, what are some things maybe Coach Dickert still needs to work on as a head coach?
I mean, when you look at Dickert and when he came in, right? Obviously, he came in at an unexpected time because obviously that was when the Cougs were going with the whole Nick Rolovich situation. And obviously, due to pretty much circumstances he really could and also could not control at the same time, he had to go. And we had to bring in Jake Dickert. And, for the final stretch of that 2021 season where, it was already starting off very rocky for Nick Rolovich. And then he came in and, kind of saved our season and saved the bowl eligibility. And, the next full season under Jake Dickert last year, he goes into Wisconsin and beats them. And that was his biggest win of the season. He also gets the Cougs the first Apple Cup victory in almost a decade on their home turf. That is another big win. And, he keeps piling up these wins. And, that's a big positive, and you got to credit that defense. That defensive front has always been pretty much the core of what Jake Dickert has believed in, because obviously he came as a defensive coordinator, and he grew up with those guys, guys like Brennan Jackson, Ron Stone, those two guys on the outside. He has been with Jake Dickert. Those two have been with Jake Dickert since he has taken over that DC position, now in the head coaching position. So it was an easy transition for them. And so that defense has always been there. I will say the offense has been the struggle, and has pretty much continued to be the struggle for the Cougs as we go into this season, because we go back to the 2021 season where, after Nick Rolovich left the offensive coordinator, and, there was a lot of issues there when we were sat down. And the Cougs bring in Eric Morris from Nate Ward, as along with Cam Ward, the quarterback. And, the offense wasn't going, and then there's still issues there. And then it's like, okay, now we got to get a new one. And then here comes Arbuckle. And, obviously at first it was, a day and night. We saw Cam Ward lead this offense to a top 7 offense in the country, putting up top numbers, Heisman candidate. And, they were 4-0, one of the best teams in the country, almost top 10 team in the country. And then it looked like it was day and night again, because the offense seemed to vanish, and the Cougs have now dropped back-to-back games. So it kind of goes up and down with Jake Dickert, but overall, it's been an interesting ride. Obviously, with the highs of winning the Apple Cup and, going to Wisconsin, beating them, and then the lows of whether it's last year's Oregon game, last year's UW game, whether it was this year's UCLA game, or even especially this year's Arizona game. I don't think the Cougs have been beat that down at home in a very, very long time. Now there's some questions coming in that walk, especially what's going on in that locker room and what's going on with Coach Dickert behind the scenes. It is a lot of questions right now, but overall, you can definitely point to a lot of positives in Jake Dickert's tenure as a Coug. But one of the negatives as well you have to point to is his bowl success, because it has been very abysmal. He has not won a bowl game for the Cougs since he has taken over. And you got to think at the end of the season, some of those kids, they, even though they want to have a chance to win, they want to have a chance to end their season on the win. And, last year in the LA Bowl gets stomped by Fresno the year before, even because Cougs were supposed to face Miami in the Sun Bowl, but then due to COVID, Miami had to pull out. So they had to bring in Central Michigan on a last second notice, and they still lose. Well, you just got to question it. So there's a lot of questions around Jake Dickert, but you got to look at the positives and say, this man has led this team to an over 500 record in a tough, pretty much very, very tough Pac-12 conference that has gotten harder and harder until pretty much the end of it, which is pretty much the end of the season.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. The Pac-12 is loaded this year, and Jake Dicker. You mentioned him going up and down, win loss. It's been big win, then big key loss, big win, big key loss, and a big part of being a consistent winner is getting your roster in the guys you need there. What's kind of been Jake Dicker's approach to building this team? Does he kind of build through prep guys, and does he rely on development, or is he a portal guy? Does he get all his guys from the portal? What's his way of kind of developing a roster at Washington State?
I mean, it's kind of a little bit of both. I mean, after last season, I mean, you had to take a look at the wide receiver room for the Cougs, because after the 2022 season, 4 out of the 5 leading receivers for the Cougs either graduated or entered the transfer portal and left. And you got to have receivers to have your quarterback throw to. So yeah, of course he attacked the portal. That's where he found Josh Kelly, and he really burst onto the scene in that week 4 game against Oregon State, where he lit up, had 3 touchdowns, the one-handed catch, which it was a top 3 on Sports Center. Kyle Williams, who's been pretty much one of his key old reliable, and one guy who's been with the program since almost forever, Lincoln Victor, in the slot. He has taken over that slot position, and back last year, that was Robert Farrell. He came up Incarnate Ward in the transfer portal, and he was Ward's favorite receiver. And that's kind of Ward's favorite receiver pretty much on any down, someone who can get the ball out quick to and know that they are going to catch the ball no matter what. So, I mean, when you look at the offense as a whole, it is taken so many ups and downs that it makes what the offense that Jake Dicker is trying to run look bad, because he has been preaching, especially as of late, running and trying to have some kind of run game for Nakia Watson, who's in his last year of eligibility. And, the offensive line isn't just finding, the right gaps for Nakia Watson to run through. And, that's also been a struggle. So it's a lot of push and pull when you look at this offense. In terms of deep balls and Cam Ward slinging the ball, it looks great, but then it stalls. And, he's out there making some mistakes that he made last year when he was pretty much a freshman, you can say, in his freshman year in division football. And, in FBS football. And you see those mistakes happening again, and you're kind of questioning, okay, what's happening here? But when you step back and take a look at this offense, right? And at the end of the day, what Ben Arbuckle has pretty much instituted into this offense is a sense, along with Dickert, is a sense of belief that they can get ahead of the chains, because that was the key reason as to why they were failing so much last year, because they were getting behind the chains. And so when you look at what happened last year to this year, it wasn't even just the transfer portal. It was also some of those pretty much developmental guys they've had through the program coming in now into almost its final season, unquote, of whatever this conference situation is for the Cougs right now. Obviously, the situation a lot. So it's a lot of, attacking the portal because you kind of have to. But at the same time, most of the guys who have been in this program have been so loyal to this program that they don't want to leave. And they've been true and through. And, Ron Stone and Brendan Jackson are 2 examples. Those are 6 years who have stayed in Pullman. They could have gone anywhere else to maybe raise their draft stock, or, maybe had a brighter light, on the way that they attack the quarterback, but they chose to stay in Pullman. And that just shows you how much Dicker has impacted not only them, but just, those guys throughout this time. So you got to kind of look at both and say, he's attacked the portal because he had to, but he's been true to pretty much growing the talent from within this program.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a winning formula, is doing a little bit of both. That's something Dan Lanning, our coach at Oregon, certainly does. He attacks the portal very well. I think Oregon finished with close to a top 10 class in the portal, and then close to a top 10 class through recruiting. So Dan Lanning, the smart, innovative coaches like Jake Daker, Lanning, they're definitely attacking both, and that's good to see. You also mentioned what's there, the situation you guys are in, Oregon State and Washington State right now. The Pac-12 appears to be fading into the darkness, possibly. And what a year! It's the last year, and look how they're doing, man. It's kind of sad to see. What's your kind of take on this whole realignment situation? Do you like it? Do you not like it? And where do you see Washington State ending up when it's all said and done?
Look, that's a great question. I mean, it's pretty much ever since August, that's been the question I've been getting. What's my take on this? As a Coug, what my opinion on it is. And it's been the same. Like it sucks. It's horrible because you can't do anything about it as someone on the outside. You want to do something, but you can't physically. And you just gotta pretty much sit here and take it. I've seen all the jokes on Twitter. I've seen all the memes from Pat McAfee and his show, ragging on the Cougs and making fun of their small program, and it's just bully mentality, and it sucks because and especially that school in Seattle. You want to talk about bully mentality? Sorry to stir the pot, but I mean, they're pretty much countersuing what we're trying to do because they want the money to give to you guys that apparently none of them wanted to stand up for. And it's just showing, the true colors of that school in Seattle. And it's just showing the true colors of, what college football has become. And it sucks. But, at the same time, what can we do? I mean, Wazoo has always been, I like to call Wazoo a one and done school because it's not even just for football, but especially for basketball. But when you see the talent that comes in, right? Like Gardner Minshew, when you go back like 5 years ago, he came in, Mike Leach found him somewhere in the middle of Mississippi and brought him up to Pullman, and he became a one-hit sensation, went to the draft, and now is the starter for the Indianapolis Colts for the rest of the season. And that has always been the Cougs because they're bringing up those guys who were not given those Power 5 chances. That's what Wazoo is. We find all of those hidden gems in those community colleges, in those Group of 5 colleges. I mean, we found Dion Henley. Where was he last year? 2 years ago, he was in Nevada. He came to Wazoo. Look where he went. He went high in the draft. Now he's on the Chargers. That has always been the Coug system since I went there almost. And, obviously when they had to bring in Gardner Minshew, it was obviously off of a really tough situation with Tyra Hinsky, rest in peace. But, still, like, they had to bring in someone. And now that you take that away from Wazoo because you're pretty much putting them in that Group of 5, all that recruiting goes away, and all that attention and all the name of what Wazoo has been trying to build for so long goes away. And, you can't even discredit the fact that the Cougs have so many teams that are in top 25. Like, the women's volleyball team is a top 4 team in the nation. Like, the women's soccer team was a top 25 team in the nation. Our women's basketball team just got preseason poll number 24 in the country. They were the Pac-12 tournament champions last year. And so, you see how Wazoo has impacted the Pac-12 for so long, and to see it just crumble in front of our face, along with Oregon State, it sucks. And it's a situation as to where, you can only try to do so much, but at the end of the day, you just gotta, it's kind of just, money, you gotta follow the money. And, no discredit to, that school in Seattle along with Oregon. You guys are definitely going to be playing some of the best competition in the country. That's why you got to go follow it. Obviously, but at the same time, at the other side, it's like, what do we do? I mean, that's why everyone's kind of treating it as a kind of final season, because everyone knows that after this season, everyone's going to either transfer out or leave the program because they know that this school is going to lose so much money in terms of athletic revenue. I mean, Kirk Schultz has come out and said that probably about 40% of athletic revenue is going to be cut next year. That is going to be horrible. Like that is what we're dealing with right now. So like there's happiness because, you know, this team was looking so great, but, you know, dropping the last two games, now there's a little bit of concern. And, you know, there's just so many rumors going around what is actually happening in that locker room. And it's just making this whole situation more of a mess. And it's sad to see, but you know, you can only do so much.
Yeah, it really does suck, man, because, you know, the Washington State Cougars in particular with the Ducks, we've had so many great battles over the years, so many great games, and that just shows you, like, Washington State can compete. I mean, they beat Wisconsin twice. I mean, they can compete in the Big Ten. I mean, come on, man. But as you said, it's obviously not about that. It's all about the money, and that's what sucks about it. As a Duck fan, my take on the realignment, obviously I'm excited. I'm happy that we're going and we're in. But at the same time, you know, even we're losing that Civil War. I mean, I've got family. I got friends that, you know, went to Oregon State, and it's like, what do we do now? You know, it's just it really messes things up from a history perspective. You know, as I mentioned, the Cougs. Ducks, they've had many, many battles over the years. We have a lot of Duck fans have a clear, vivid memory of the game last season when Oregon was down 27-15 entering the fourth quarter. And then they go on to score 28 points in the fourth to come back and win 44-41 to escape Pullman with the victory. It's got to sting a little bit if you're a player. Does this Washington State team hold that memory as motivation for this game? Or do you think that's kind of put behind them?
Oh, I definitely think, especially in Cam Ward's head, that is definitely a big memory because he knows he was there. That was the coming out game for Cam Ward because that was, you know, Cougs were 3-0 coming into that game. It was the first conference game, and, you know, no one really knew of Cam Ward. He was the name that you didn't know, but you were going to know after this game. And he had those spin moves and was making those passes throughout the first three quarters. And, you know, he's looking good throughout the first three quarters, and then everything just collapsed. So, you know, I definitely think coming into this game, you know, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle because, you know, it's definitely a road environment I don't think Cam Ward has faced this season. And it's going to be loud. I know it is going to be very, very loud. It's one of the loudest stadiums in the country, and it is not going to be easy for Cam Ward. And I think he's definitely going to have to face a lot of pressure because not do well under pressure. And that is the kryptonite to Cam Ward. When he has to face some serious pressure, whether it's noise or pass rush in his face, you know, he tends to crumble sometimes, but another times he makes, you know, magic. And so it's kind of a gamble when you come to when it comes to seeing how Cam Ward can do it in this game on the road. So I do think they're going to have a lot of motivation, especially that defense as well. You know, I know Ron Stone and Brennan Jackson, those two guys, you know, most of that defense is, you know, relatively new, but the guys who were here last year, you know, they do remember, you know, how, you know, they really did not really get to Bo Nix that much. And I know that is going to be their one key goal. You know, that is pretty much their key goal, but, you know, that Oregon offensive line, you know, that is the challenge. And it's going to be a really, really tough uphill battle for those two guys on the outside, but, you know, they're going to be motivated as ever. So it's definitely going to be an uphill battle, especially for a banged up offensive line after last week. We'll see how the health is this. But in terms of matchups, I know Cam Ward is definitely going to be having a lot on his mind, especially how last year's game ended. You know, how obviously with that horrible turnover at the end. It was just, you know, it's one of those, you you come back drive, you know, you're trying to come back and it's just, so, you know, I know that's one of those where it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. And so I know that's going to be, that has been the one thing Cam Ward has been thinking about in coming into this week, just trying to rewrite that wrong.
100%. You know, Washington State, they started off pretty hot this year. They beat a ranked Wisconsin team at home, kicking off Pac-12 play with a huge win over the Beavs. But now the Cougars have dropped their last two games. At UCLA, they lost 25-17, and then Arizona 44-6. Cam Ward has struggled his last two games. 389 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, finished with under 200 yards passing his last 2 games. What do you think is the biggest reason for these last 2 slip-ups? It's very weird to see a team start out so hot and then just look like a completely different team the last 2 weeks. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, you can credit it either way. I mean, you can credit it to the defensive adjustments that have been made by both Arizona and UCLA, or you can credit it to the ghost that has come into Pullman and has just traded all the guys that were coming in before the bye for all these guys coming in after the bye. But I'm going to go with the first one. What Arizona and UCLA have done to pretty much stop this passing offense is simple. And I'm going to tell you this. You can tell Dan Lanning. Are you ready for this? Rush 3, drop 8. That's all you need to do. Because all these guys, obviously, the Cougs are a very pass-heavy team. And when you only rush 3, you're going to have all these guys cluttered in the middle or one-on-one potentially, whether it's man or zone, to potentially stop the pass. And, Cam Ward may have all day, and that's the thing. When Cam Ward has all day, he looks and scans and looks and scans and looks and scans for anything. And whether his protection up front is giving him actual good protection or he is getting sacked off the edge, it's very, very tough for this offense to produce when defensively they're just doing one simple thing, but the Cougars can't do anything to adjust, right? And we saw it at UCLA. The Cougs could not move down the field one bit. UCLA, credit to them, they do have one of the top defenses in the country, very, very stout. What Chip Kelly has done to that defense. Usually it's always the offense that we're raving about with UCLA, but now this year it is their defense. So, we got to give credit there. But last week was the icing on the cake on how you can stop the Cougars offensively, and that is rush 3, drop 8. That is all Arizona did last week. And the Cougars were successful for one drive, and that was it. One drive, the first drive, and that was it. And this week, I want to see how they can come in and hopefully have some offensive adjustment, because last week was absolutely abysmal. The offense was the same. It was stale, and they just could not move. And Cam Ward, when he faces that pressure or when he looks to scramble or tries to, play hero ball, that's when he tends to turn over the ball a lot more, whether it was the fumble that went out of his hands when he was trying to throw it, or, the interception over the middle. It's looking like there are some questions on whether the offensive issue is coming from Ben Arbuckle, obviously the new offensive coordinator, and his offense is getting a little, predictable, whether it's the play calling from Jake Dickert or Cam Ward or whatever the situation we don't know. But at this time, I mean, you got to look at what we've seen in front of us, that Cam Ward has been playing absolutely abysmal. It's been night and day. It has been literally night and day. I mean, when you look at his first 4 games, he was a Heisman candidate. He was throwing the ball at least 300, 400, almost 400 yards a game. And, he was finding Josh Kelly over the middle, and he was connecting with Kyle Williams on the sideline, making some accurate throws. And, after one bye week, he comes up against 2, formidable Pac-12 opponents, around the same, I'd say around the same stature in terms of, how they play, and he folds. And, and that's why people question, what really happened during that bye week, because, it's night and day. The bye week came, and then this team is a whole new team. So, there's questions on whatever happened during the bye week. But for now, you got to look and say, hey, this offense is not producing, because whether the defense is pretty much rushing 3, dropping 8, and you can't adjust, or the play calling is just not there. And there's been plenty of questions now. There's a lot of speculation, just whether it's the fans or just Twitter or whatever. There's a lot of speculation on what really is going on in that locker room. And unfortunately now a lot of questions are rising after 2 back-to-back embarrassing performances.
Yeah, let's talk about your guys' offense a little bit more. Coming in, Washington State offense ranks number 12 in pass play percentage, number 16th in pass yards per game, number 17th in completion percentage. What are some things that you guys as offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle like to do with his offense that makes it so dangerous in the pass game?
The thing that Ben Arbuckle likes to do with this offense is get them open in space. And whether that's Kyle Williams, obviously number 2, or number 3 on the road, that's Josh Kelly, either one. We saw it in that Oregon State game when Josh Kelly was just playing one-on-one against, the Oregon State defensive backs. He was finding routes, Cam Ward slinging the ball in the right. I mean, I'm sorry, but that I got to go back to that first one-handed catch. That is best throw, better catch. You can't even write that. That is the connection these two have. It starts with the offseason. They just train, and we see it flourish in the regular season. And when we look at how this offense is ran, right, with not as many bubble screens, because that was the thing with this offense last year. It was a lot of bubble screens and a lot of tunnel screens. And now this year, it is prioritizing getting downfield and getting open in space. And that has been pretty much the key as to why the Cougs have pretty much had a top 15 offense, essentially, because, of the fact that, we are letting these guys get open in space and do their thing, right? And Kyle Williams, he has definitely been, Ward's dependent guy, whether it was the first pretty much second play from scrimmage for the Cougs against Oregon State, where Cam Ward found Kyle Williams wide open over the deep for that 60-something yard touchdown. They just find him open in open space. And that's the thing Arbuckle has pretty much, I'd say, brought in. The attack of, okay, let's attack down the field over the top instead of just trying to get 5 to 10 yards every play. Let's emphasize the deep ball, because, there's a school over here in Washington, a state as well, that's the deep ball as well. We know what school we're talking about here. And, if you're going to beat them, you have to do the same thing as them. Throw the ball deep. And Cam Ward has been doing that, for the first few games, just going over the top. And, I saw some of the throws against Oregon State a few weeks ago that I saw. I'm not going to lie, that I thought they were Heisman worthy. I mean, whether it was that ball, that second touchdown to Josh Kelly in the end zone, where he also another one-handed throw where he had the DB confused. That's an NFL type play. You cannot write that. So part of it's the talent, and part of it's the play calling, and part of it is just the talent that both Williams and Kelly produce when they're at the line, as well as Cam Ward when he can really sling the ball. Because when you see Cam Ward really slinging the ball, it's some of the most impressive work you ever see. So I don't know what it is right now in terms of the struggles offensively, but earlier on, that 1-2-3 right there, that is a lethal 1-2-3. I will tell you that much.
Yeah, I'm sure Coug fans are loving those 3 offensive players right there. But you know what I love, guys? I love watching sports and making money. I'm in love with Mojo Fantasy. It's a crazy new app that turns sportsbook odds and selections into fantasy contests. Here's how it works, guys. There are thousands of NFL and MLB player props. You build a portfolio, and the better your portfolio performs, the more cash you win. Pick as many props as you want and try to beat the crowd. It's a whole new way to play fantasy. The props act like stocks, so you can buy and sell live all game long. It's the only fantasy app that lets you make moves after the game starts, so you're not stuck with a bad pick. You can cash in on a hot start or just hang on and let them ride. Cash contests are based on real sportsbook odds. Get the same live player prop selection odds and cash outs as Mojo's New Jersey Sportsbook. You can trade sports like stocks. You control the action. Ride your picks, cash out, or enter new positions instantly. And there's no house advantage. Beat the crowd by building the biggest portfolio to climb the leaderboard and win cash prizes. That's it, guys. Make picks, make moves, make money. Download now on the Apple App Store and use my code DuckZone for 100% deposit match up to $100 for your first-time deposit. Link in the description for more. All right, guys, let's get into it. We got Washington State coming into number 9, Oregon, Autzen Stadium, 12:30 kickoff. I got my guy Kuria Pounds here talking, previewing, predicting the game. So, we look at this offense. It's obviously a very pass heavy. Washington, sorry to say the name. Let's call it the team in Seattle. That's better. That team in Seattle over there. They're very pass heavy as well. And they got their run game going. Okay, they had about 100 yards in the game overall, but they only ran it 20 times. So that's about 5 to 6 yards per carry. It was very effective for them. Very effective. Now, it wasn't the story of the game for him, but it was very effective. It made the defense think once or twice to come up, and it allowed Washington to get the team up in Seattle to get the deep ball. With Washington State, I looked at your last two games where you guys kind of struggled. Your leading rusher had 25 yards, and the other game, they only had 21 yards. That was your guys' leading rusher. Do you guys think you guys need to get that run game going a little bit more to get a win against Oregon at Autzen Stadium?
Yes. I'm gonna just put it simple with it. Yes. Look, we're in week 8, and Dickert has been talking about emphasizing the run since week 2. And I don't know what it is going to take at this point, whether it is getting a new offensive line, maybe switching running backs, because that has been the word on Twitter, getting a lot of Coug fans have been saying, maybe switching out Watson for maybe like a Dylan Payne, like a power down type running back, with that similar, running ability like Max Borghi, former Coug. And, Nakia Watson, credit to him. He's a great back, but, he has had a lot of trouble finding open lanes. And that has been the key reason, or whether it's the offensive line, not really getting those lanes open or whatever it is. The offense has been preached by Dickert to go through the run, and the run is not producing. So we have to throw. And that is where we get into these situations where, okay, it's third and whatever. We have to have Cam throw on a 3rd and short because we can't trust our run game on a 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and 1. Or what it is, we have a lot of design runs by our backup quarterback, John Mateer, whether it's, he comes in for the Wildcat formation and, he just takes it upfield for a few yards. That's our run game, and that's sad to say, but our run game is either a quarterback draw with Cam Ward or John Mateer, or, it's going to be, maybe an end around that we have maybe Carlos Hernandez or, some other slot receiver running. And, that has been the issue, whether it is the running back or the offensive line or the running back room. And, we do have Jalen Jenkins right behind them, but, sometimes he's not as dependable because he is a little injury prone. But when he comes in, he can attack the ball. He is very fast. He's a very downward hill runner, but, we don't really use him that much because we only use him kind of like an NFL comparison here, like a Jahmyr Gibbs type situation, only on passing downs or on third and longs. We're trying to get some yards back to set up maybe a field goal or easier punt. And, that really comes into question. Are we really using him the right way? And, there's so many questions about this run game. And, it is week 8 now. And Jake Dickert has been saying we need to start our offense through the run since week 2, since week 3, and since week 4. And we have not done anything since. And it is getting to a point of frustration where fans on Twitter are saying, okay, we need to change running backs because our guy is not that guy. He can't be the guy who we depend on first down to get us 5 yards because he's not going to run upfield. He's going to try and find lanes, and he gets tackled at the line of scrimmage. And so that's our big problem with our run game is, whether it is the offensive line or the fact that, we have some maybe potential running back issues where we may need to switch up the depth chart, it's definitely a big problem. And that has kind of led to our offense fizzling out because, when you don't have a good run game, you can't really throw for that much as well because your offense is going to be figured out. And that's what I think essentially happened. When you throw the ball so much, right, and you have a bye and, teams start to figure you out, especially in the conference, you're going to get stopped, whether it's by a team like UCLA who is better defensively or a team like Arizona who honestly is better by stopping the run, and you go over the pass, but you can't throw over the pass because they know how to play you defensively. So there's a lot of issues, whether it's the play calling, whether it's the offensive line, or whether it's the running back room, pretty much a whole pretty much three reasons as to why this run game has pretty much stalled for the Cougs this season.
Let's take a look at your guys' defense this year. You guys statistically not so pretty, but you guys have gotten to the quarterback here and there. You guys got 13 sacks on the year. That's pretty respectable. Who are some guys to highlight on this side of the ball? Are there any matchups on this defense that you're kind of looking at and saying, "Ooh, this is an area I think we can attack the Ducks"? And where does Washington State kind of hang their hat? Is it the front seven? Is it the secondary? Kind of three questions in one, I guess, for you there.
Yeah. No, definitely. First, when you talk about Wazoo's defense, you always talk about the two guys up front, and that is being Brennan Jackson, number 80 up there, along with RJ. We call him RJ Ronstone Jr. Those are the two guys you prioritize first because those are the two guys that are going to lead the defense. Those are the two guys you always depend on to kind of spark your defense, to spark the Cougs defense, I should say, to kind of just pretty much turn up a new level because they just love getting to the quarterback. And whether that's any way possible, that's what they feed off. And that's what the linebacker core feeds off. And then the linebacker core gets fed off by the secondary, and it's kind of trickled down. And so it kind of all starts at the front line, with Brennan Jackson, and guys getting to the quarterback. And then, it's always kind of hand in hand, when we have a big play, in the backfield, potentially, whether it's a deflected ball or a sack, strip fumble, or, a pressured throw leading to an interception in the secondary, it's kind of all starts with that front four. And you kind of credit, you pretty much credit Brennan Jackson and then RJ on the opposite side. So I'd say those two pretty much kind of are the two kind of guys, you really look to in that on the front. But in the middle right there, you look at number 52, that's Kyle Thornton. And you really look at him, and he has been, that guy for the Cougs, in that secondary. That, that guy we kind of compared to Dion Henley last year. Very physical, I want to beat you down type of linebacker. And that is the mentality he always comes in with every single week. And that's how he earned this spot. Because obviously last year, we were coming in, obviously we brought in Devin Richardson, the transfer from Texas, and we brought in McCullough, the transfer from Maryland. And, it was already going to be assumed that those two were going to be Mike and Will. But then Kyle Thornton comes in and, McCullough goes down and Thornton just kind of, he steps up and he takes over that role. And that's why he's such a vital, important part to this defense as well, because he is that anchor man as well in the linebacker core. And then you go back to the secondary and there's two guys. Honestly, there's like three guys or honestly, you can say the whole secondary. You can point to each guy. Sam Lockett, he has been right. Yeah. Sam Lockett right there. Number 0. He has been, a key guy when we talk about free safeties. He is someone who will always scan the quarterback, find where he's throwing. Jaden Hicks, I compare him to Jamal Adams because he gets at the line, he can sack the quarterback, and he can also play secondary. Shaw Smith-Wade, he's one of the best lockdown corners that we've seen on this team in a very long time. And then Kapina Gushken, he's a transfer. We brought him in against UCLA. He has an 89-yard pick six. And, he's turning into a gem as well. So, it's always these hidden gems that, we find defensively. Now, yes, obviously it's been a rough year, especially stopping the run. The Cougs have had a really, really hard time, stopping the run. At first, the Cougs seemed to stop it, whether it was Wisconsin with their two backs. And then, you can only try so much against Oregon State with Damian Martinez alongside oh my God, what's the other back's name? I can't. Why is that name blanking on me? Oh my gosh. Oh,
I know Martinez, but I don't know the other guy.
Oh my gosh, he's a transfer. I'm gonna remember his name later. But I'm gonna remember his name later. But yeah,
it always happens.
At first, the Cougs were able to stop them, but tired and you kind of get a little bit tired, and your legs start doing the same thing over and over again. And you got to look at yourself and say, look, this team was good at doing this, but because the offense has taken a little bit of step down, the defense takes a step down as well. So when you look at players to watch on this defense, I'd say you got to look at Brennan Jackson and RJ. And then in the secondary, I'd say Jaden Hicks, because he's a wild card. We love to put him at the line, potentially have him as a corner blitz or a safety blitz. And then we like to have him in the secondary, and he likes to stand the quarterback, and he can read, where he's going to throw. He made an incredible pick 6 in week 1 against Colorado State. He just had an easy read, and he took it to the house. So, there are plenty of guys on the secondary who and at the line who can make a play. I like to see what this team can do to stop the run, because we know obviously what Oregon does with Bo Nix, and we've seen what he can do last year. But with Irving, he was the guy last week who you guys depended on against that team in Seattle to pretty much get you on early downs. And that is where the Cougs falter. If the Cougs, if the run game for opponents is going early, it's going to be a long afternoon for the Cougs. So if the run game for Oregon is already getting up early, it's going to be a long afternoon for Wazoo. So I definitely think, that Oregon run game against the run defense for the Cougs is the matchup I like to see. How the Cougs can potentially stop the run game or try to early enough so they can make it a little bit more competitive than what people predict this game's going to be.
100%. Yeah, great matchup. I would love to see that. We're carrying on here. We got Kuria Pounds here of the College Kid Talkin Sports Podcast. We're previewing and predicting the Washington State at number 9 Oregon game. Guys, if you guys really want to support the channel, I appreciate everybody watching. If you guys want to support this is a fan-based podcast brought to you by the fan. Appreciate everybody. Here's a way to support the podcast right here. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Dominiqk Peterson, host of the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Very excited to announce we just launched our very first merch store. Men's and women's t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, stickers, phone cases, mugs, and cups are all sold at DuckZone503.creator-spring.com. If you want to go grab one of those today, that's DuckZone503.creator-spring.com. Store link will be in the description below as well. Yeah, guys, you guys know what to do. Store link in the description below. If you guys want to get some merch, it's only for this season, and then we're done. We'll have a new set of merch for next season, so make sure to get it, and then it's history. All right, guys, let's keep it rolling here. We're going to give our 3 keys of the game, final score prediction for this Washington State-Oregon game. Let's do it. So we got about 12 minutes. Let's get this done here. Bam. So my 3 keys of the game versus Washington State. I got number 1. I got contain Washington State's passing attack. We just went over it. They love to pass that ball. I got hold Cam Ward under 300 yards passing. Cam Ward, the last 2 games has been under 200 yards passing. The defense for Oregon has been upgraded a lot this year. We've been seeing it through the first 6 games of the season. I want to continue that. Let's try to hold him under 300 yards passing. I like the Ducks' chances there. Number 2, win the turnover battle. When you're at home and you're coming off a big loss, you want to gain some confidence, have your defense make some plays. We've all seen Cam Ward have some hefty turnovers and some big time moments. I want to see the Ducks do it to him again. And then number 3, I got dominate the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball. Defensively, I want to see the Ducks get after Cam Ward, get it in his face, get pressure on him. The Ducks have been really good at that. 19 sacks on the season so far. And then offensively, run the football. Kuria just said it right there. Washington State has been struggling to stop the run. I want to see this offensive line for the Ducks really dominate, get Bucky some holes, get Jordan James some holes, and run the football. So for me, I got contain Washington State's passing attack, hold Cam Ward under 300 yards passing, win the turnover battle, and dominate the line of scrimmage. I think if the Ducks can do those 3 things, they'll get the win. All right, Kuria, what does Washington State got to do to beat the Ducks?
Yeah, I mean, this is not going to be hard. This is not going to be an easy one. I mean, look, we are coming in already as 20-point underdogs. Vegas is already saying, look, you guys are going to get whooped. It's not going to even be close. But if the Cougs want to have a chance, obviously, number 1, they got to force turnovers. And that is pretty much the only way you're going to have any chance in this type of game because, Oregon has always been a very, very, a clean team, a clean team in terms of, not really turning over the ball that much. We saw last week, not really that many turnovers. When you really think about that game between Oregon and that team in Seattle. Not many costly turnovers or, many turnovers on both sides to where you could say it was such a domination. And obviously last week, the Cougs turned it over so many times to where it was a domination. So, forcing those turnovers instead of getting those turnovers forced against you is definitely going to be the biggest key for the Cougs, I'd say, on Saturday to pretty much keep themselves in this game if they want to have a chance, not really trying to force anything. And, also on defensively, maybe potentially getting a pick on Bo Nix, maybe making Bucky Irving fumble. We'll see. And then obviously second, open field tackling, allowing to the ball. I mean, look, the Cougars open field tackling has definitely been up and down. We've seen it in the past where, Cougs get a big run in the open against whether it was Martinez, I think, in that first week, in that first conference game. He gets in the open, he has a big gain, and he just kept running and running. And that has pretty much been the big problem, the big plays. And, when the Cougs give up the big play, it is going to be a long game because big plays equals big wins for the other team. So I've been rallying to the ball as well. When the Cougs start the spark, whether it's defensively or offensively, that is how the Cougs game is going to go. Whether it's a slow start that turns into a potentially faster end, or it's a fast start that potentially simmers down. That's kind of always how it's been for the Cougs. So, hopefully rallying to the ball, and getting that spark first against Oregon on the road, in that kind of environment, that's going to definitely, be the key for them to actually have a chance in this game. And then 3, like I said, starting fast, limit the penalties. I mean, the Cougars penalty-wise have not been too bad, but, it definitely can spike. And obviously kind of a rivalry game, there's a lot of personal animosity. We talked about how that game ended last year with the Cougars leading that fourth quarter 27-15, and then, heartbreak on Pullman. Cougs lose by 3, even though it would have been 44-34 if that last second touchdown did not count. But there's definitely going to be a lot of close animosity in this game. So, no personal feelings in terms of, whether it's Cam Ward or some of that defense that was there, last year to be part of that collapse over in Pullman against the Ducks. And then when you talk about starting fast with this team, they're going to go into a true road environment that is coming off a really, really bad loss, obviously a really tough loss against, a really good team. And, obviously everyone saw that game and everyone saw how that game ended. And, that stays in you. And you never want to be the team that has to face them next week. And we just happen to still be that team. So, we already know that, Oregon's going to come into this game with a lot of frustration that needs to be let out after that game-ending missed field goal by Camden Lewis, just to potentially, send that game to overtime. Who knows how that game would have ended. And then obviously for the Cougs, there's just so much frustration on, look, we just got our butts spanked on national television by 38 points. There's got to be something that's new. So both teams definitely have a reason to start fast. But for the Cougs, they have to come in to a road environment and start fast. So there's so much, there's an added layer to that. So if the Cougs can somehow maybe get a turnover or maybe score on the opening possession and take the lead, then by golly, we'll see what happens. And also, not giving them first downs. The Cougs gave a lot of first downs to Arizona last week, whether it was by penalty or just by turnovers, by stupid turnovers that lead, or whether it was by turnover on downs and penalties that lead to turnovers and stuff like that. The Cougs have always, like I said, last year, the Cougs got behind the chains so much that it was hard for them to get first downs. And this last week was a repeat of that. Offensive line, the Cougs can definitely win this. I would say the Cougs can definitely win this game only if they just cannot pretty much get behind themselves. And that has been pretty much the common theme the past 2 weeks. The Cougs have gotten behind themselves and have faltered so much to the point where they're not going to win. So I'd say force turnovers, hopefully stopping, Troy Franklin and Bucky Irvin in the open field, and potentially starting out with the lead and maybe even turning over Oregon on the opening possession.
Okay, I like those keys, man. 100%. I could definitely see some things happening. We got a big time matchup right here. Washington State, number 9, Oregon, Autzen Stadium. This is big. What's going to happen? What do I think is going to happen, guys? I got 42-24 Oregon in Autzen Stadium. Look, both these teams are going to want it. Both these teams are coming out with their hair on fire. Washington State just lost 2 straight games. Oregon just lost their big game to their rival. That is the main thing why I think Oregon's going to come out and just put it on Washington State. I think they're going to come out fast. I think it's going to be probably, a 3-4 score game at halftime. I think Oregon's going to come out big time and really put it on them. I think the run game is going to be unstoppable. I think Washington State is catching Oregon at the wrong time. Now, in the second half, I expect Washington State to make some adjustments, bring it back, come back a little bit in the game. But in the end, I just have Oregon coming out really fast, starting.
Yeah, so obviously I would love to back the Cougs in this spot, but I just can't. They're not going to win. I mean, as you mentioned it, look, they're facing Oregon at the wrong time. Oregon obviously coming after a bad loss, and that's, like I said, that's the worst time you want to face a team, when they're coming off of a bad, heartbreaking loss, coming back home in front of the home crowd. Obviously there's a lot of animosity throughout Oregon and Eugene, just after that sour loss, and the Cougs just have to come up and face a tough team on the road that they've always had battles with, and I don't think they've won in Autzen in a very long time. I would keep it short and simple. The Cougs ain't winning. I think they do cover the 20-point spread. I do think it comes a lot closer in the second half. I agree with you. I think the first half is just going to be an absolute domination. You're going to see a lot of potentially big runs and big plays from Irving, and Troy Franklin. But in the end, I do think that this Coug team will potentially maybe get a second half rally and potentially have some sparks offensively. But the Oregon Ducks will just be too much. You're facing a team that already has a reason that they need to win. And, in a battle of two teams that need to win, the team at home always needs to win a little more in front of their home crowd. And so I'm going to give this game to the Ducks. I think it's going to be a lot closer than Vegas thinks, but not that too much. I think it's going to be a 2-score game. I think the Ducks win by 14 at home.
All right. Korea's got 31-17. I got 42-24. All right, let's do a quick one. We got 3 minutes. Let's make it rapid fire here. All right, we already picked Oregon for Washington State. We got 14 Utah at number 18 USC. This is a big game for both teams. Give me USC at home. I got them bouncing back at home. I think after losing to Notre Dame, I think they'll bounce back. Arizona State at Washington. Give me Washington. UCLA at Stanford. Give me UCLA. All right, your turn.
USC, Utah, look, you have both teams. You both need to win here. Obviously, USC coming off a bad loss. If Cam Rising's playing, I would love to give it to Utah, but obviously with all those offensive issues, I got to give it to USC. ASU versus, I'm just going to go with that other school. I can't even talk about ASU in this. And then UCLA, Stanford. Look, obviously UCLA, they're coming off a bad loss. Dante Moore turned over the ball way too many times against that Oregon State team. I think they do bounce back in this spot on the road against Stanford on the farm. I like the Bruins to win against the Cardinal.
Boom. There you guys have it. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We got Washington State, Oregon this weekend. It's going to be an awesome game. I'll be there. I'll have a vlog out for you guys. I'll have the recap and analysis episode coming out on Monday. Make sure to tune in. As always, guys, make sure to go follow my guy, Kuria Pounds, for all things Washington State. Go Ducks.